Three things in this gospel came out to me. Everything happens in our faith in threes, no different for me when I read these things. The first is, it's unusual for us to have a gospel without Jesus in the gospel. It's all about John the Baptist today, the herald of Jesus. The second thing I noticed is there's no mincing words with Mark. This is the first 8 verses in Mark's gospel. And he begins with the beginning of the gospel of Jesus Christ, Son of God. He tells you right away who Jesus is, and the rest of the gospel is meant to reinforce who Jesus is. But he doesn't hold back on who Jesus is. It's not like you're going to figure it out as you go along. And the third thing was John the Baptist. His preaching a baptism of repentance, and people flocking to him. And we may not recognize, but this is before Catholics, before Christians. There is no sacrament of baptism. Yet everyone's going out to him. And so John, as Brandon wrote in today's bulletin article, John's kind of a crazy man. But you may not get that because we hear this reading and kind of gloss over the words because we've heard them before. So I wanted to try and illustrate for you maybe how crazy he is, maybe in today's world terms. So I thought of wearing camel hair and a leather belt, but I didn't think that would do it for me. So I thought of eating locusts, but I draw the line there. I'm not doing that for you. So I tried to find another example, and I think I found one that's more current. I hold it right side up. Anybody ever see that on the street? Maybe in New York City. And what would you do if you encountered somebody with this sign? If you're like me, you'd avoid them at all costs. Because they're crazy, just like John the Baptist. Except people were flocking to him. If I encountered somebody like that, I try to not make eye contact. I make sure I was in a crowd so I could pass by. Kind of hard to avoid them in New York City because they're handing out the pamphlets. I might take a pamphlet, but I'm certainly not going to engage them in conversation. But the opposite is true of John today. So there had to be something about his message to make people go out to him. So I thought about public speaking, and I thought about myself relative to public speaking. And I thought back to high school and college, when I would do anything I could to avoid public speaking. But it's hard to get away from it sometimes. And so I did what I had to do to get through it, but I didn't embrace it at all. Then I got into the workforce, and in manufacturing it's kind of hard to avoid as well. I had to present to a customer about 3 years into my career. And I remember my first presentation, I was so nervous, I went to get a glass of water. In the midst of the presentation, my hand was shaking so bad, I spilled water all over my papers. Then about 10 years into my career, I went into sales. Talk about a public speaking career, right? There's no way to avoid it there. So I found a way to cope with it, but I remember thinking when I got into sales, who could possibly want to talk to me? What can I bring to the party? But somehow I must have been reasonably successful at it because I'm still in it and I've been able to pay my mortgage through the grace of God. Then I applied for the diaconate, and I thought, one day I'm going to have to stand in front of people and give a homily. Who could possibly want to listen to me? But here I am, and here you all are. Probably don't have a choice, but you're here. But why am I here? Because someone greater than I is coming after me. That's the message we hear today. Any of you that are parents know that having a baby changes your life. That person that's coming, that's greater than I after me, is coming in the form of a baby. Even though in today's gospel, John's an adult, Jesus is about to start his public ministry as an adult, we're in Advent. We're anticipating, waiting for a baby who happens to be our Messiah. And I thought about how a baby changes your life. I remember when I had my first child with my wife, she stayed home for a couple months, then went back to work nights so that we wouldn't have to put our child in daycare. And I remember early on, I'm responsible for this child when she goes back to work. And so one night after a few weeks of this, I put him up to bed. Must have been a weekend night. I went about doing some stuff after he went to sleep, and then I thought, I'll go to the mall for a while and walk around. And then I went, I can't leave the house. There's somebody upstairs that's relying on me. And that was, for me, the revelation that that baby has changed my life forever. That's what Advent is all about for us. It's about letting that baby change you. We go through lots of Advents, they can all seem the same, but every year, our lives are different. We've gone through some grief, we've gone through some joys, But it changes year after year. So the challenge, every Advent, and especially this one because we're in the midst of it, is how can you let that baby change your life? That anticipation of our Messiah. So my suggestion for you this week to try and meet that challenge is find some time in this busy shopping season with only 2 weeks to go to let that baby change your life. The easiest way might be to just turn the radio off on your ride home from work, however long it is, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, if you work in Boston, an hour plus. But think about that baby coming into your life and how can it change?